to another episode of the Fanzone podcast. Your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fanzone podcast. Of course, tonight you'll see it's episode 136, and that's following our 1-0 victory against Bristol Rovers yesterday afternoon. Have we all woken up from that yet?
I mean, I've just watched that Manchester derby. It was much better.
Yeah, so if you had woken up, you just fell back to sleep, and then yeah, absolutely. Good evening to everybody in the chat. Thank you very much for joining us so far. There's currently 44 people listening and watching live. If you could do us a massive favour, give us a like and all that good stuff. That'd be really appreciated. Of course, you'll see tonight you're joined by myself and Ange and special guests, of course, Daryl Morris. How are you this evening, Daryl?
Snoozy after the weekend's football. Yes, no, I'm very well. I'm very good. I'm good.
Good.
A 3-point pod.
A 3-point pod indeed. We all like them, don't we? Good evening to everybody, of course, all the channel members and everybody else in between. Please get your comments, or continue, should I say, to get your comments in the chat. And of course, I will bring them to view this evening. I am the only one with a bit of power tonight in terms of the button clicking, so you'll have to bear with me. I'll do my very best to be in tune with you all. But please test me. Put as many comments in this chat as you wish, and I'll make sure that I'll bring them to view. And of course, Daryl, ever professional, and Ange, maybe less so, will of course discuss them as we move on. But yeah, I reckon we're getting to the post-match reactions, and of course, sponsored by our friends at Johnson's Tiling. So yeah, as touched upon already, Wanderers managed to get themselves the second 1-0 victory in a week. Love them. Can't beat a 1-0. Clean sheet and 3 points. What can we complain about? I wouldn't have thought absolutely nothing. Obviously, like I've touched upon again already, somewhat of a snooze fest. That could be a complaint. But in my opinion, I don't really think the way we play this time of the season matters one iota. It's all about chucking our hat into the ring and obviously making sure that we get ourselves one of them playoff spots, and then who knows what might happen. We'll start with the guest co-host, I think. Daryl, not heard your tone and voice for a long time with the Fanzone podcast, Daryl. Always a pleasure. What are you saying about yesterday's game? Obviously, you've touched upon being tired already. I'm guessing you're alluding to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, I mean, it was a poor game, wasn't it? I mean, I don't think, let's not beat around the bush. It wasn't brilliant. It felt like a bit of an end of season game. It sort of felt a bit like neither team had very much to play for, which was odd considering, both teams had a huge amount to play for, really. Particularly Bristol Rovers, obviously, who were sort of fighting for their lives. Yeah, look, I'm okay. So the obvious thing to say is, as we've alluded to already, performances at this point of the season matter less than points, and obviously that is literally true. The most important thing at this point is you could, bit earlier in the season you might come away from a game where you played really well and not taking anything from it, and you might think, oh well, no worries, because if we play like that again, it'll get better and we'll pick points up. You can't afford to do that now, and so if you're going to play poorly, at least get points. I think that's absolutely fine. I feel like there's just something tugging at me though, which is, that wasn't a one-off. We've played poorly. We're on a bit of a poor run in terms of performances, to be honest. Wigan wasn't much better, and of course, we had a few duff results before that. And the thing that's tugging at me is, and I don't want to be pessimistic about it really, but the thing that's tugging at me is, can we get away with playing like that for the next 6 weeks and take home what we need? Can we put in performances like that every week and get the points tally that we need to get over the line into 6th? And that obviously is a history that is to be written. But I think I'm less not concerned about the performance than some people are, and maybe I'm right or wrong to be. I don't know. That's subjective, but it's tugging on me a little bit. That
I'm inclined to agree with that. I think there was a discussion in recent weeks where I sit whether or not we've got the minerals to win over 2 legs in a playoff semi-final. And I think the performances of late have kind of backed that theory up that we might actually not have enough. I think the reason for that may very well be the attacking or lack of from a front line, or certainly from a number 9 point of view. Ange, how did you feel the game went yesterday?
Yeah, it was dull, wasn't it? The atmosphere was flat. They gave us nothing. They gave us nothing to get excited about. And just picking up on Daryl's comment about the next 6 weeks, and absolutely no, we're not going to come away with what we need playing like that because we've got a better opposition coming. I think it's only because of the opposition that we've, obviously, the lower end of the table, that we've managed to scrape a 1-0 against those 2 teams. It was leggy, wasn't it? They were tired, and I think when Dempsey came on, for me, he brought a bit of energy, and it was brilliant to see. So happy to see him when we thought his season was kind of done. So that was my highlight of yesterday's game, seeing Kyle back on the pitch. But yeah, there's a Tuesday match and then a Saturday, so it's gonna be this next 2's like a real test of what we've still got in the tank, and I do really worry about, as you just said, Colin, the lack of attacking options that we've got.
I think it's needed, and I don't know whether you agree with this, Daryl, or not, but I think it's needed that some players step up. I was kind of hoping Carlos Mendes-Gomez yesterday would have a game similar to what he played against Birmingham, which I thought for an error he was excellent. But he obviously snatched at 1 or 2 chances and didn't manage to get the rub of the green. But how important, Daryl, do you think it is that like a Mendes-Gomez or a Dempsey kind of step up and give us that bit more from an attacking perspective in that final period?
Yeah, massively. I mean, particularly when you consider how light we are up front, really. We obviously pretty much have Collins and McAtee, who can put in a performance on their day, but are too inconsistent, I think, for me. We love them both, don't we? They're both kind of on the path to being cult heroes, and they put the effort in and all that sort of stuff. But I find myself being very frustrated by Collins. McAtee just sometimes kind of lacks that bite, doesn't he? We know what the problems are. We know how hard they're trying. We know what the problems are. We know how light we are. Somebody said that we're a Dion Charles short, and I think that's probably true. To be honest, whether that's justification for having kept hold of him, for having turned down a huge amount of money for a player who wasn't on the best of form and all that sort of stuff. There's a business conversation to be had, isn't there? But we are certainly missing a third striker who can snap at people's heels, who can bring us a bit of energy, who will run at them, or who will just give Collins and McAtee a bit of a break. I mean, I just don't know if they can play 90 minutes for the next six games at that kind of, around that really good run of form, particularly the Birmingham game. I mean, they just gave everything, didn't they? They gave absolutely everything. And I wonder if, they both got quality in them, but I wonder if their effort sometimes makes up for a lack of quality. And when you're playing as much football as they are, and there is so much riding on them, and we are relying on them as much as we are, the effort drops off, and the lack of quality gets a bit exposed. I think that's probably where they are at the moment. And that's not to say they're bad players, and it's not to say that we don't love them and believe in them. I absolutely believe in them. But I think that, to come back to the point you make about Carlos Mendes-Gomez in particular, we've got to have players stepping up from midfield and contributing to the attack. I think I would just say one final thing, not to sort of bang on about this, and also not to be sort of too critical of Steven Schumacher. I want to kind of preface what I'm about to say here with new manager, exciting manager. I've got a lot of time for him. I think he's brilliant. I think he's the right man for the right job, in the right job at the right moment. I think he's probably set us up wrong the last 2 games. I felt like we were a bit weak in midfield with Sheehan and Randall. we were sort of persisting with this 5 at the back thing that hasn't worked for us all season. That has been a problem that caused a problem for Ian Evatt. We weren't using the wings properly at the weekend, and what he has what Schumacher has is the ability to change a game with his changes, make the right subs at the right times, change the shape at the right time, and he's I think that worked really well on Saturday. I think that we got a lot out of the subs, and I think we changed shape, and that really helped us. And sort of really admire him taking Dacus Cogley off, to be honest, and just going, Dacus Cogley's just not getting us down the wing enough here. Let's put Gethin Jones on. I think we all probably went, really, but then he's next thing he's down the wing and providing an assist from the position that we'd struggled to get into all game. Okay, so fair play to him, and I guess he's learning from that point of view. But it's a long way of saying yes. I think you're probably right about a bit of extra from midfield would go a very long way at this point in the season.
Yeah, I think it might be an option to consider maybe looking to maybe go forward at the back and have 2 maybe natural wingers. Maybe Osatutu on one side or Mendes Gomez on the other, for example. I don't know, or Sean. I'm not sure, but maybe go one up front and maybe pack the midfield a little bit with maybe Dempsey, kind of, or it's Matete making deep runs like they did on Saturday after he made the changes. So I do think he needs to utilise the squad a bit more in this running and maybe rest McAtee and Collins from time to time. We may very well see that against Rotherham on Saturday. It's interesting to see how much Atete is in his thoughts. You have to be careful with the Atete and Atete thing, don't you? But Atete, because I think he must think that he can still contribute at some point this season. We're not seeing anything, are we? But we don't see him daily on the training ground. And of course, he were on the bench, weren't he, at the weekend? So
I was surprised to not see him at the weekend. You say he's got to contribute, and you're right. And I was sort of thinking, if not now, when Collins and McAtee were blowing out the backside, and they were both exhausted and not really bringing very much because they were exhausted. A bit of height, bit of physicality. Even if he's not the most technically gifted player, I don't actually know because I
think actually, Daryl, sorry to interject. I think it's actually the other way around with him. I think he's actually not as physical as you might expect for a big player. Right. He's actually better with his feet than he is in the air. But obviously, he is kind of just another option. Really, I think that's the thing to him. Listen, I don't know a great deal about him. I just know what I've spoken to Jake Tong about, obviously, because he's got a deep knowledge of kind of the EFL as a whole, and he's kind of known that his pathway to Cardiff and whatnot. But I don't think he is that kind of 6'6" kind of powerhouse that you might be hoping for, Daryl. Yeah, okay. Unfortunately,
That's a shame.
But obviously, I think yesterday there was a couple of half decent performances. Guest co-host is going to take the reins on the old Fanzone Man of the Match, of course, sponsored by iHeat.
Oh gosh, some hosting responsibility. Can you believe?
You can manage it.
Are you sure?
You'll be fine.
You'll be fine, mate.
Yes, man of the match time. So, comments who standout performers, excuse me, in the comments box, please. We'll bring them up and we'll debate them. Ange, for you, man of the match on a boring afternoon.
And you know what? Purely because I love him. And I was so happy to see him back yesterday that I am going to give it to Kyle Dempsey. He was barely on the pitch. Simply because I was so happy to see him back on the pitch. Other than that, he probably would have been Farino. But no, I'm giving it to Dempsey.
Okay, controversial. Cole.
I'll certainly won't be giving it to Carl Dempsey because of the reasons why Ange just alluded to. He wasn't on the pitch long enough. But yeah, I thought Baxter was pretty impressive in that kind of one really important moment that he needed to kind of make a vital save. And he's kind of proven to us once again how important he is to the team, in case we didn't know that already. Coleman last season, for example, just to remind you all. Yeah, really good save. Really a save that you'd expect from a goalkeeper of his ilk. So I think he deserves a shout. I'm struggling after that. And really, I think Aaron Collins, of course, took his goal well. You know, I think he did well kind of drifting between the two centre halves, finding that space, and I think he took the header really well. But yeah, I think it has to be Chris Farino for another mammoth display.
Sorry, I'm laughing. I'm just laughing at the autocorrects in the chat. So we've got a play called Dory, and then we've got a Torino who I think Patrick has then tried to correct to Farino and once again Torino. Autocorrects done you dirty there, Patrick.
I think you did. One thing I've noticed when I ever listen to the podcast back, it's often when I'm driving to work or wherever I'm going. We're not descriptive enough when it comes to the kind of situation because it's live. But Ange, I think you did a sterling job there being descriptive because, yeah, I think other people who are listening to this back will know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I was just saying maybe giggle that. Sorry, Patrick. We assume you mean Farino and not Torino.
It's an autocorrect nightmare. I think Farino for me as well. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think he's just sort of quietly grown into this role of being probably, I might say something, this might be ridiculous, but I think he's about as complete a player as I've seen us have for a while, to be honest. One of those players who just feels like he's good with his feet, he's good in the air, his spatial awareness is brilliant. He's got great physicality. He's sort of a bit like he's sort of Santos minus the dithery mistakes, really, for me.
Interesting.
No,
are you muting me?
I've sent you a private message in the chat and just quite a bit of interference. Obviously, you've not read that. So that's why you were muted. And my apologies. Have you
tell me not to go on my phone. It's not come through that actually. But yeah, a massive amount of heart. Like he was the first one. He was running up the pitch in Birmingham and stuff. He's a great player.
Yeah, I mean, getting from the back line to the corner flag in about 4 seconds during an altercation, running the length of the pitch to celebrate with the fans at the Wigan game. I thought he was brilliant yesterday. I thought he was absolutely brilliant yesterday. I think, like I say, I just think he's a complete player. I think he's just sort of got everything. And I'd quite like to see, I know we've got a lot of chopping and change at the back. We've obviously got an injury to Forrester now. I don't know if we know very much more about that at the moment, but didn't look great, did it? To be honest,
no. I think it's discussed that it's a hamstring problem, Daryl. I think that's the issue. And if it's a tear, then he's out for the season.
Yeah, I think so. So so that obviously leaves us asking a few questions. But I saw somebody seemed to suggest that Santos told a fan that he was fit and available yesterday. I don't know if you saw that comment. Somebody said that they'd spoken to him outside the ground and he was fit and available. So why he isn't at least on the bench at a time when we're putting George Thomason in the back line. I mean, I don't know. Maybe something's gone on there. Maybe I don't know. We can only speculate, can't we? I suppose.
Yeah, we can only speculate. I think the reason why you might be a massive advocate of Farino, because I think he has got a lot of the attributes that you mentioned, Darryl. But I see him as a bit of a no-nonsense centre half as well. Obviously, Rico is as good as he is, in my opinion. Don't upset people because I know he's a bit Marmite. But he does have a tendency, of course, to dilly-dally from time to time. But I think the reason for that under Everett was he was, as we all know, he was the one that kind of brought the play on learning because obviously his distribution skills are so good. And that segues nicely into what I think he does offer. Is Rico does have the ability to be able to distribute the ball at the back line very well. There was times yesterday against Wigan that we were looking for them diags that Rico is so very good at. And Farino doesn't have the capability to be able to find them passes. I think he tried it once and he didn't kind of pull it off. So Rico does have that at his disposal. But I think all around, Farino does seem to be kind of more of a old school defender, Daryl, which you may be showing your age in admiring somebody like that, possibly. Who knows?
Yeah. He reminds me of Colin Hendry. Colin Hendry is my all-time favourite Bolton defender, probably.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. Which is, I know there's a...
Not Bruno and Gotti?
Well, I was going to say, I just suddenly thought Bruno and Gotti, Hierro. I mean, actually, there's quite a lot of of rich talent there, isn't there, that I'm overlooking in favour of Colin Hendry. But yeah, you're right. But I think that I think with the exception of Santos, we've missed somebody that we can kind of build our defense around, really, and having somebody who, who as I say, feels like a kind of really complete player, and I am still excited. I'm not part of the writing Santos off crew. I'm excited about the prospect of seeing Santos play under Schumacher. I want to see him. I think the last couple of weeks we've reverted to trying to play those similar patterns out of the back, as I mentioned earlier. I think that was wrong. I think he set us up wrong. Hopefully he's kind of recognizing that style of play doesn't get us up the pitch. We've tried it all season and it hasn't worked, and we clearly don't have the balance in the squad to make it work. I'm excited to see him in a team with Schumacher that's playing a little bit more direct, maybe in a 4 with Fol1-0. That's a formidable. Fol1-0 and Santos is a formidable League One.
Well, Brad Taylor is, I don't know whether you noticed that in the chat, and that's why you said it, Daryl, if you were stealing Brad's comment, but a couple of minutes before you said it, he said exactly the same thing. For the people listening on audio, Brad said, I wouldn't mind Fol1-0 and Santos together in a 4, which is exactly, of course, what Daryl's just said. So you're absolutely right. That would be rather formidable, wouldn't it, at this level?
I think so. Yeah,
absolutely.
So do we need to make a conclusive decision on who does that fall to me as the host?
It certainly does. Yes.
Does it?
Well, yeah. It's whoever got the panel's vote, and then if there's a split, we normally go to the chat. But I think you and Colin both went for.
Yeah.
What do you go for?
Fol1-0.
I went for Fol1-0, and I think the chat is pretty unanimous in that respect.
It's
well.
pretty Fol1-0 heavy.
Excellent.
Or Torino heavy.
Yeah, exactly.
Fol1-0.
So I hereby declare then.
Yeah, hereby declare it.
That Fol1-0 is our man of the match.
Wonderful.
Congratulations.
If you are listening to this, Chris, enjoy it. Enjoy the accolade. So it's time to, what do you reckon? Get the old stat on? What do you reckon? Let's do it.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Get Stats On, of course, with the Statman himself, with grey hair, not as grey as it looked last time, still looks pretty grey, but that is just my hair, unfortunately. Of course, this segment of the Fanzone podcast is sponsored by General Louise Salmon, and you know the line, if you're buying a gaff, give her a bell. Of course, it is more complicated than that, but what do I know? I just care about football. So let's move on to football, and precisely Tuesday's game against Rotherham. And this is a big game. Of course it's a big game. Every game is a big game until the end of the season. However, it's not a big game for them because they are slap bang in the middle of the table, to be honest. And they've just got a new manager as well. He's only managed 2 games, so of course it's going to be another difficult one for the Statman. However, I believe I have done a little bit better than I did against Wigan. But we'll move on. So, in the new Gaffer's 2 games, he's won away at Northampton 2-0 and beat Blackpool at home 2-1. Blackpool did get a red card, but that wasn't until like the 89th minute or something. So didn't really have a massive impact on the game. Apart from that, a goal came very similar time to the red card. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Blackpool. We're here to talk about Bolton and Rotherham. So they've played 2 different formations in each game, which again just makes it really hard for the Statman. However, I am going to assume that they're going to play the back 3. 1, because they beat Blackpool with it, and 2, because you play a back 3 most of the time. So, that's what I do anyway. Even if he goes to the back 4, it shouldn't change anything too much, especially with this man, Reece James. So, he plays left back, and first of all, it is not that Reece James. It is a different Reece James. But he gets very far forward, no matter where he plays, basically. So I'll show you this screenshot here. This is actually from when they played a back 4 against Northampton. 4-3-1-2 it was. And he gets very high up the pitch, as you can see, with his average position on the screenshot. And that doesn't change for when he plays in the back 3, as you can see now. Apologies, the graphic is flipped, but you still get the point. He gets very high and he covers a lot of ground. And he is definitely a key part of how this new manager is going to play at Rotherham. But apart from that, I can't give you too much, to be fair. I was going to show you some goals from their 2 games, but they've all been like really scrappy goals. Like, I'm talking ball into the box, fumbles around, some guy taps it in at the back post. And that's near enough been all 4 goals that they've scored. So, my main advice would be, keep it tight, don't do anything silly, you'll be fine. But we will go on to a couple more things, because I do have a couple more things to say. So, Louis Sibley is another threat. And if you've been watching Rotherham this season, why would you? But if you have, he's actually not been that good. He's only got 2 goals and 1 assist. But, and that's all season, by the way. But 2 of them contributions have come in the last 4 games. And he did actually get man of the match on the app I was using. So he got a good rating anyway. He had a good game against Blackpool. So he's in good form. And you should know, Louis Sibley in good form is a good player. He was mint at Derby, wasn't he? But he's gone a bit off since. But he appears to be finding his form. And that could be because of the new gaffer, the new manager bounce. So you definitely need to be careful of him, because he is a decent player. Yeah, again, apart from that, I've not got too much to say. I'm looking up at my notes. I'm just trying to think if there is anything else that I've maybe forgot to say. Oh, Reece James. He has got a long throw. So that's definitely something to watch out for. And they have been pretty good from set pieces since the new man's come in. But apart from that, I've not got much. They play fast on the counter, but I mean, everyone does, really, don't they? But yeah, you'll dominate the ball and they will try to hit you on the break, is how they are going to go about playing this game. But like I said, keep it tight, play your football, don't play their football, and you'll be fine. That is all I can give you. Yeah, another poor Statman segment, let's be fair. But yeah, can't give you anything else. So I'll sign off. Enjoy the rest of the podcast, and I'm sure I'll see you very soon for another Statman preview. Goodbye.
Yeah, for those watching live, before we get into the Statman's dissection of the opposition on Tuesday, we've got a new channel member, Dragonsight. Thank you very, very much for being our latest YouTube member. Very, very much appreciated. The money that we generate through membership goes towards us essentially operating the podcast for everybody to enjoy, if you do enjoy it. We presume you enjoy it because there's 105 people listening live tonight. So, yeah, any contribution like that is very, very much appreciated. And I'm sure Angel reiterate that message, of course.
I will unmute myself to do that. Thank you. We really do appreciate it. Yeah, like Colin said, it does. We do have to pay. We do have to pay some little bills.
It does cost money.
To be
yeah,
able to do this pod.
Not free.
So yeah, it does help. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Very much so, yeah. Thank you very much. Just an observation on the Statman's dissection of Rotherham. We mentioned earlier that Cogley got took off earlier. I presumed, and probably still is the case, that the reason for that was an offensive switch because, of course, like Darryl said before, Cogley was struggling to kind of get us up the pitch, and obviously Gethin Jones is pretty good at that in his defence. Very much an attacking wing back. I think he's better in that offensive role. But having just listened to the Statman there mentioning Reece James on the left for Rotherham, maybe there's a little bit of forward planning of the fact that taking Cogley off and resting him a little bit, coming up against clearly a left back who's in form. I like to think that is the case as well, possibly. Who knows? Have you got any opinions on that observation, Darryl? Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, no, I didn't. That's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I would, I'd support that argument. I think if we were ahead, and I think if we,
fair point. Yeah,
I think it felt like changes to that game had to be about that game.
Yeah,
because Rotherham counts for less. Arguably it counts for more. But if we hadn't got 3 points out of that game, we've just got to get 3 points out of the game in front of us right now.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah,
and I just think, I might be wrong, but if I was Stephen Schumacher, I'd be thinking like that. And I also think the fact that he just wasn't getting us up the pitch, was he? He just wasn't really working. And one of the things that I did think during that, and I don't know quite know how to sort of feel about this really, but teams that don't have anything to play for present a unique sort of challenge, don't they? And my instinct is that it's never as easy that as it seems. You think, oh well, they've checked out, they're on holiday, they've nothing to play for, but I think that in particular what we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks and months is we play better against teams that, last few years actually, is we play better against teams that play against us, right? When a Birmingham come, I don't think it's any coincidence that Birmingham came and played and we were able to match them and actually outplay them. We've struggled consistently against teams that are scrappy or sit back or aren't engaged or don't kind of want to match us, and that I feel like that that there's a risk there attached to Tuesday.
I think that we might see a bit of a combination of the two on Tuesday, Daryl, with Rotherham, because let's not forget Rotherham got relegated last season from the Championship. They were playing Championship football last season. And a lot of people did tip them to be up there this season. So they have got a nucleus of a decent squad that clearly lacking confidence. And obviously Steve Evans' brand of football hasn't necessarily rubbed off on them. And hence the reason why he's obviously lost his job. But yeah, I think we'll probably see a combination of two. I don't think they'll be afraid to kind of attack us like the Statman was saying as regards to kind of counter-attacking. But yeah, I think they'll offer a lot more than Bristol Rovers did the other day.
Those middle of the table teams are always a worry at this point in the season because they've got that free, they've just free. The shackles are off them. They don't have that anything hanging over the neck of fighting for promotion or avoiding relegation. They tend to have already relaxed, and for me, those I much more worried about the middle of the table teams than I am about the ones up at the top, because nerves get in the way when you're up there up at the top, and things can happen. So yeah, Tuesday's definitely got to be a tough match. Yeah,
well, we're going to actually, nice segue, and we're going to actually get into the fixtures of the remaining fixtures of each of the kind of challengers for the sixth place shortly, and kind of see who, them teams are coming up against. So that might be an interesting observation as far as mid-table teams are concerned, Ange, that you've just touched upon. But before we do that, let's have a bit of a laugh, see what posts have been going out on socials. Yeah, I could have gone rather heavy on Wigan, given the fact that obviously it is that fixture. But I took the decision not to, because I kind of thought that game has passed. We've got the victory. They aren't really that significant to us. And I think it'd be better off just to kind of move on, forget about them, and hopefully not play them again for a long time. However, Luke Robinson has been up to his old tricks again and created a video on X. Essentially, a similar version to the salty tiered Birmingham City one that he put out a few weeks ago. If you haven't seen this Wigan one, I'd encourage you to spend 1 minute and 36 seconds of your life watching it, because it's rather entertaining. Of course, paying reference to Wigan's famous DJ and several of others, kind of highlights of that wonderful town that is Wigan. Shout out to Henry Hewitt. Obviously, similar to Daryl, a guest co-host from time to time, and obviously Henry does a sterling job on the buff. He managed to score a late winner at Gig Lane last night, a penalty. It was a decent penalty as well, if you've not seen it. Fair play to him. He played at Gig Lane after the Bolton game on Saturday, should I say. So yeah, fair play. I thought what he's giving the heads up, and yeah, bit of a nod to that penalty. So fair play to you, Henry. Got to give a lot of kudos as well to the post in the top left-hand corner, simply highlighting that famous TikTok video of I think the lad, he's certainly from the Northwest. He's absolutely off his trolley. I'm sure you've all seen it in the past, where he's basically saying that I've got work in the morning, and the post is highlighting hashtag BWFC, of course, at 11 p.m. on April the 1st, of course, which was the day of the Wigan game. And I'm sure there were many Bolton fans feeling very similar following the game against Wigan. I mean, I didn't drink, and I went knackered the following day. I think you said the same thing, Ange, didn't you? You were a bit tired after that.
I had the day off and was knackered, so people have to get up and go to work. I have no idea.
Yeah, especially if you've had a skinful as well and whatever else. But yeah, yeah, I had to highlight that because it was did make me laugh. And he got 2,000 likes as well, so fair play to him on that. And just one last post as well that I want to mention is, of course, his top right hand corner, Mystic Burr. He highlighted after yesterday's game, probably referencing the fact that a lot of people were saying maybe the performance wasn't too shabby. He's put, "We won. No charity wanderers. No lose in front of a big crowd. No can't follow up a derby win and result. Yada, 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 etc., etc. We won. Let's crack on." And I think that's essentially, Daryl, what we've touched upon already, isn't it, really, in terms of kind of treating each game as it comes and just kind of the performance is kind of irrelevant, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think if you play badly and win, you get promoted, right? If you can play badly and you can win, sorry, not that kind of pod, are you? Forgive me. A rubbish game, a poor game, but you get 3 points. That's the kind of sort of just grind it out, take the points, run away, kind of season that gets you at least into a playoff position. As I say, I mean, I do still feel a little bit concerned about how often we can do that, and about eventually you luck runs out, or eventually you don't get that scrappy goal, or you don't get that one chance, or that one chance comes and goes and gets missed, and you end up conceding one or whatever. I think we have to be a bit more convincing in the next 6 games in order to make sure of it, and obviously we certainly have to be more convincing across 3 games in the playoffs if we do, But yeah, I mean, he is basically right. We won, and particularly the big crowd thing. I mean, the atmosphere was terrible, wasn't it, on Saturday? And we have a problem. I was sort of not looking forward to the idea of being these community days. I don't really look forward to anymore. I think they're obviously like great and important, and I think they should continue to happen, and they do a huge amount of good and all that sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong, but. And we also have to try to find a way of bringing in new fans, and you get a lot of new faces there, don't you? A lot of kids who get free tickets and that sort of stuff. I think that's great. And one day we'll put on a great performance in front of them, and some of them will actually want to come back, as opposed to never bother again, which is what tends to happen. But they do produce a strange atmosphere. They produce a different atmosphere, don't they? I think that's a challenge.
That, as well as the fact that I think even Shuey touched upon it. There's an expectant crowd yesterday, weren't it, Daryl? So it was like a concoction of that day tripper. I hate that phrase, and I apologise if you're watching this and you did go on a free ticket. I do apologise. I don't mean to cause any offence, but yeah, like a day tripper fan, and the fact that your traditional season ticket holders, and I put myself into that category. I expected us to win yesterday. I mean, obviously, if you want to get promoted, you have to expect to beat Bristol Rovers at home, with all due respect to them. So it's like a mixture, where like a concoction of 2 bad things, really.
Yeah. And I wonder if going forward, we probably should have already got to this. The players and the playing staff and the management just need to be aware of that. They just need to in the run up to those games, don't expect. A big crowd doesn't necessarily mean a big atmosphere on those kind of games. So don't expect to go on there and feed off the crowd. Hunker down, focus, get your job done on the pitch. That's what you've got to do.
Give them something to shout about.
Yeah, play the match, not the occasion. The occasion is a community day. You've got 90 minutes of football to play. Just go and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And they did. They got 3 points, which is all that matters, I guess. Right. Okay. So fan focus time, and this week. This one's in Angie's capable hands.
Now, you're all very quiet after a win. Now, fan focus after a loss, there's always plenty of questions and comments flying our way. But we've not had very much. There's 2. There's literally 2. So I'm going to do them both. So Leslie, long time watcher, Leslie Davis, posed a question. We all know the football over the last 2 games has been awful. True that. But at the end of the day, would we rather watch that and get 3 points or play brilliant football and lose? Very similar to what Darryl was saying at the beginning of the chat. Just stick it in the chat. For me, I absolutely have taken the 3 points over I put a tweet out last night saying, I don't care about the performance at this point. We're here for points, and that's points make prizes. So either put points or performance in the chat, and let's just see if we're all on the same page or not.
We have to all be on the same page, though, don't we? Really, with that? Let's be fair.
I would think so. But yeah, panel, if you want to come in with any.
I mean, as I say, everybody must be on the same page. It's not really important, really, this stage of the season. We've touched upon this kind of already, haven't we? I just think that just a case of grinding it out, isn't it, really? And one thing I would say is we all know that the performance, or we all should know the performance this stage of the season doesn't really matter. But when they are playing poorly, in inverted commas, the last thing they need is jeers and boos, especially at home, because you pay money, you say what you are. Who am I to tell you what to do? But I just think just have a little think about it before you start jeering and booing and whatnot, because it's just not going to help the situation, is it? Like, it's all about getting them points at the end of the day. That's all I'll say on the matter, really. It drives me insane when people start to jeer and boo when they're playing backwards, and sideways. I know the song's good and it does make me laugh and whatnot, but we essentially scored against Wigan the other day because we'd kept the ball for such a long time during the course of the game and kept going backwards and sideways because Wigan were knackered. If you watch that goal back, yes, it's a calamity goal and it's obviously gone viral for that reason. But Wigan's players were dead on the feet. They couldn't clear the lines. They were knackered. And they were like that because we kept the ball and we were playing it sideways and backwards. So just leave them to it is what I'm trying to get at. And just, if it's not what you want to see, no, but just try your best not to jeer and mourn and boo, because it just doesn't, in my opinion anyway, I just don't think it does any good.
Yeah, I agree entirely with that. I have booed them off before, but I think that's different. At the end of the game,
that's entirely different.
Yeah,
because you're booing them off because of probably the result, I would suspect.
Yeah.
And when you're 25 minutes in, the result hasn't been announced yet, has it? Because it's 25 past 3.
Yeah, exactly. I booed them off. I just had a bad day, not the result. Just I think we won. I was just in a bit of a bad mood. David makes a really good point actually on the chat, which is interesting. He says end of season games are always like these tight, uninspiring games, and I think there's something in that as well, isn't there? That you saw two teams actually both games, Wigan and Bristol Rovers at the weekend, which Wigan are not out of a relegation fight by any stretch of the imagination, and Bristol are obviously deep in it, and Bristol Rovers are obviously deep in it, and there's probably something about that. There's probably something about being a bit cagey, about not wanting to lose, really. A point was obviously very valuable to Bristol Rovers. I think a point would have been relatively valuable for us at Wigan as well, although on balance, 3 certainly, obviously better. So I think there's something about this time, this part of this point of the season, a bit of fatigue. You're on the final run. You as you said earlier, Ange, you've got these mid-table teams who are shackles off and don't mind. Then you're playing a Bristol Rovers and a Wigan, and shackles are on, right? Shackles are firmly on, and it leads to a poor game. And so maybe it's as much about that as it is unbalanced in the squad, or them not clicking, or them not communicating properly. Maybe it's just occasion, sense of the occasion, and what's at stake.
And we spoke about this in past pods, Colin, about some of the reason that the players that we have are in League One is not just a technical reason. I think it's a mental reason. So I think the mentality of the occasion, they just all get their heads around, and that's when it kind of all unravels. But to be honest, it showed a really good characters, especially the Wigan game. They really dug deep, and it showed how much it meant, which was lovely to see.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. Shall I move on to Jordan Hookway's question?
You
which
can,
is...
but just
Okay.
please, if you wouldn't mind, just reading out Phil's comment, end on that, because I think that sums it up perfectly, really.
Yeah, so Fol1-0w, or Revel, I'm not sure how you pronounce that one, but we have an amazing fan base. Put everything to one side. The club, players and fans all have a job to do in the next few weeks. Let's get it done. Fist bump.
Fist bump indeed.
Yeah, never a truer word said. Get behind them. We got to do our bit, and they'll do their bit, I'm sure. So, Jordan Hookway's got a two-part thing, and the second part kind of leads on to your next thing, Colin. So if we just do the first part to start with, which is, what do you think has been the turning point in getting us back on track? I just think it's been playing two poor sides.
Oh, sorry, back on track in terms of actually looking like we might get promoted.
I assume so.
If he's back on track, why we might have a chance to get promoted was because we got rid of Ian Everett and brought in Schumacher, and that's why we turned the corner in that respect. Otherwise, if Mr. Everett would have still been here, we would have been probably nowhere near it. But in terms of the last two games, if that's what he's alluding to, I just think just having the. But in fact, playing in a cagey manner, I think has done it, because I think by playing conservatively, I think it's enabled us to grind results out, which is obviously why we've got 2 1-0s, and not being as expansive, which I think can cost you, can't it? Look, we were rather expansive against Wigan last year. We battered them from minute one, and we lost 1-0. Whereas this time we approached it in rather somewhat more of a conservative manner, and we won 1-0. So
I think that's a really good point. That style of play, that expansive style of play, those patterns at the back as well, they are risky. I remember Ian Everett saying at one point, I think it might have been after Huddersfield actually, and there was that awful goal that we conceded, where Baxter just gifted it to them, didn't he? And they slotted it in. I think I remember him saying then, I take responsibility for that. I'm asking them to play a way that is risky, and it leads to goal. It will occasionally lead to giving easy goals away, but I believe that it will score us more goals and win us more games than it doesn't. He wasn't right about that, I don't think, really, on balance. But that you're right, that expansive is risky, and I don't think you can afford to do that at this point of the season. I don't think you can afford to take that risk at this point of the season. I think you're right. I think closing ranks and being more conservative and being tighter, particularly as the Statman says about being tight on Tuesday, I think is what gets you over the line. Clean sheets really do help. They really do sort of get you over the line at this point of the season. Defensive attacking. Yeah.
Summed up well.
So the second point in Jordan's question leads on nicely to Colin's graphic that he's done for us, is how many points do you reckon we need from the remaining games to secure 6th place?
No, we're going to have to be rather descriptive on this one, because obviously, like I've touched upon already, that there are lots of people that listen to it back on audio only through Spotify and Apple. We've got in front of us here a selection of fixtures for the teams that we feel are competing for 6th spot. The teams are, in no particular order, Huddersfield, Reading, Leyton Orient, who I've just noticed are on twice, which doesn't really help. And
he's had a
Bolton.
shocker.
I've had a shocker. It's supposed to be Blackpool, which doesn't really help. So this is the beauty of doing things live. I do apologise.
Yeah, we'll just skirt over that.
We'll skirt over that.
I don't think Blackpool in the mix.
I think so. Yeah, I think they're still in the mix. They've been on a good result recently, a good run of results recently, haven't they? That's kind of like enabled them to be up there. Maybe we can't dissect the fixtures as much as we wanted to, which doesn't really help because of my mistake. So I do apologise. But the answer still stands, though, Angia, or the question, should I say?
Yes, the question still stands. So what are we thinking? How many points? And I'm not really that great at these whole working out the points and stuff. Is the Statman in the chat? I don't know. Anyway, For me, it's just every match we must win it, and that will make sure we secure a playoff spot. Done.
Okay, shall I tell you? Shall I give you my assessment of that?
Yes, do it.
So, but you're right. Yeah, win every match. It really helps. I don't think Blackpool are in it. I don't think Blackpool and Leyton Orient are in it. I think Blackpool have had a couple of good results, but then get beaten by Rotherham, and I think they're too inconsistent. I just don't think they've got the consistency to make up the ground. They're 6 points off 6 at the moment, with 3-4 teams above them. I just don't think they've got the consistency to do it.
Was it Barnsley you were meant to have in that graphic? Where are they?
12th.
Barnsley,
they're well off
out
it.
of the question.
54 mid-table.
They got absolutely thumped in the other weekend.
At least we won't have Barnsley in the playoffs.
Hey.
Every cloud. If we do get there, it won't be Barnsley. I don't think Leyton Orient are in it either for the same reason. If Blackpool aren't in it, I don't think Leyton Orient are in it either. I think again they're way too inconsistent and have too much ground to make up at this point. I think that Huddersfield are in a terrible, weird mess at the moment, aren't they? And I can't see them being consistent enough to take the points they need. And Reading are in a really weird position as well, because they are, what is it, 22nd of April? And they might be expelled from the league. So they might not even be in contention anyway. I don't know. I'm not quite sure where that's up to. I know the owner has to sell before the 22nd of April for them to not be expelled from the league. There was an extension to that, wasn't there? I think the EFL gave them an extension, which suggests to me they've got enough evidence to suggest that it's going to happen and that they're going to get it over the line and they'll be fine. But there's every possibility they're not even in, after the 20th of April, they're not in the hunt. And we know how awful a feeling that is. And solidarity to them. And it's absolutely incredible, by the way, that they are up and where they are and doing what they're doing, given all of given what's hanging around their neck. So I think if you put all those things together, 66 points for Bolton, 65 for Reading, 64 for Huddersfield. If I'm saying that, I feel like they're the only teams that are in it, sort of in it, consistent enough. Then I think 10 points gets us over the line, minimum. That's the low end.
Yeah, I tried to check what the playoff line for 6th was from last season, but my laptop's having a bit of a funny, and I did a software update before, and it sent itself a little bit west. So unfortunately, I can't do that. But yeah, I think that's not a bad shout, to be fair, Daryl, because I think what we are now, 66 points or 76 points.
Yeah,
I feel like that's there and thereabouts the kind of the number that you need to kind of get 6th place. So
76 to 80, I'd say. 76 to 80, I'd say.
76 was Barnsley last season in 6th.
Yeah, then
There you go.
the Darrell's has absolutely nailed it. The thing is, all I would say on this is there's still 6-7 games left. Is that right?
Yeah, 6 games. Yeah,
6
games left.
Yeah,
There'll still be twists and turns from not only teams below us, but teams above us as well. Like Charlton dropped points on Saturday, didn't they?
Wickham are struggling as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think we'll go as high as that. But I don't think 5th is completely out of the equation yet. But we just need to, like we've said already, win as many games as possible. 3 more wins and a draw will do it, according to Daryl, and I'm all for that. I apologise about messing the graphic up, by the way, everybody. It's killed the end of the pod, that.
I think I just point out, by the way, that I do think that that's also based on the on projected inconsistency between Huddersfield and Reading. I think that Huddersfield in particular are just too inconsistent at the moment. I'd like more. I'd like to get us to 80 and beyond, to be absolutely certain. But I think as long as my projected inconsistency in those teams bears out, then I think 76 will do it.
Obviously, we don't wish ill on Reading, but just with that one, Daryl, do you know, is it completely expelled beyond the 22nd, or is it point deduction, heavy point deduction?
My understanding is that they could be expelled from the league. I'm not 100% sure actually, but I think there is the threat of that. You often, I don't know whether you sort of think no, the EFL aren't going to do that, are they? And then they do, as we saw them do against, do to Bury, so, and almost us. So,
I mean, it's not like they have to pass a fit and proper test or anything that the EFL put in place. So it's not even like it's remotely their fault in the slightest, is it?
No, they've no role to play at all, have they?
No. It's all his Reading fans' fault, apparently.
Yeah. So I don't know, but hats off to them. I mean, we've been there. We know how it feels. It's horrific. They're a great club. They're an old club. They've been around for a long time. We've got a lot of history. To see them be expelled would be absolutely devastating. Yet another one bites the dust. Another example of this business of football just not working properly, and incredible that they've done as well as they have, and unbelievable that they are in amongst the playoff places.
Their academies absolutely phenomenal. That's ultimately why I think they've still managed to cling on to the Cat 1 status, and they're still producing players, and clearly they're producing them and doing a good job of it, aren't they? Because that's the reason why they're up there, because they've not been able to sign anybody and strengthen in the windows for God knows how long. So it's unbelievable what they've managed to achieve. But yeah, we're not a Reading podcast, but yeah, we wish you all the best, Reading, off the field. Not necessarily on it, of course, for obvious reasons, but certainly off the field. But yeah, I think that ends tonight's episode perfectly under the hour mark as well, which will be greatly appreciated as far as HR is concerned.
Winning at life, HR.
Winning at live, indeed. Yeah. Thank you very much to the 140 people who have watched live. And thank you very much to the many, many people that listen beyond the live showing, because we do recognise that people listen not live. So thank you very much for your continued support. If you could give us a review on Apple or Spotify, that'd be great. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't even have to be that good. You can actually say the Fanzone podcast crap. It all helps on the algorithm, which is what we're really fussed about, because that enables us to get into the eyes and ears of other Bolton fans, of course, which is what
all publicity is good publicity.
That's what they say. Exactly. Exactly that. And of course, if you could do us a like and a subscribe if you've not done already on YouTube, that'd be really, really appreciated. Ange, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much.
Great fun.
Great fun indeed. Daryl, wonderful to have you on tonight's episode. You're very well received, I think, as far as the Bolton fans are concerned. We do often get many comments after you've been on, so please show your face more often, if you wouldn't mind. It's great to have you on. Thanks for coming on, pal.
Oh, well, thanks, folks. Thanks a lot.
Are you about to go and do your actual job as well now?
Yeah, I'm on air in an hour. So yeah, this is a nice, I've done this before, where I've done this podcast before doing the show. And I come out the other end and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm done now. I feel like I'm done. And I've got to rev myself up and go and do a 3-hour radio show at 10 o'clock. So yeah.
We've just got a bit of an insight into why Daryl doesn't come on maybe as often as he might like, if that's the case. Yeah. No, really appreciate you coming on, Daryl, and taking up your time to do so. So thanks very much for that. Have a lovely evening. Watch the rest of it. Have a great week. We will be back, of course,
tomorrow.
Preview show. Ange, I know you've organised that. Do you want to give that a little plug quickly?
I will. So I know that it's Chris doing it for us.
Chris is doing it. The wonderful Chris Dawson.
Oh, it's going to be at 9:00, people. So that's really important. We will put a post out just to let people know. But it is the lovely people. I'm scrolling. I can't remember who we've gone.
We can all see your phone on your glasses, Ange, so we all know you're trying to find it.
Who was it? Phil.
I should say, I'll tell you that I listen back or watch back, usually whilst I'm doing the night feed. I've got a 5.5 month old. So I usually watch on a Monday after during the 11 o'clock late feed. That's usually when
your shift, yeah.
Which has been ruined for this week because I know what's going to happen. So
you spoiled it for yourself.
I'm going to have to find something else to watch tomorrow night.
It's New York Talk. That will be joining us tomorrow night on the preview at 9:00 with Mr. Dawson.
We got there in the end. Thank you very much, Ange. And of course, we'll be back on Wednesday evening to review the game against Rotherham. Hopefully, another 3-point podcast. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you on the next one. Come on, you Whites.